Wait, I got to get on this. Like, this looks insane.
All right.
Objection.
I'm the one who asks the questions around here, so you need to get in your place.
In this video, I'm calling a shot here.
I'm fully aware I need to go back to school.
Well, actually,
Yeah,
hashtag small creatives matter. We're those crazy people right now. I came for the game and I stayed for the community.
Whoa, I can't wait for this.
It's gonna be the best feeling ever. I can't wait.
Hey everybody, how's it going? This is the Rover Cast episode 3, back at it in the building. I hope everybody's doing well. We're excited about another opportunity to just be able to speak with you all, the community, and we have an awesome guest with us today. We have Zoxaskoon. Yes, everybody, so happy that you're able to come. As always, the first thing that we want to do is we want to introduce ourselves to anybody who might not know who we are. And then I'll kind of give you guys a rundown of what we're going to be talking about today. It's going to be a very special podcast, but I will give it to Connor, and then everybody can kind of introduce themselves.
Opening the floor. Hey, hello. Hello, everybody. I'm Connor Stotts, primarily a PGR and Wuthering Waves content creator here on YouTube. Just here, loving doing this Rover Cast with everybody and get to talk more about Wuthering Waves.
I'll go next. So yes, guys, Level Pixel here. Back at it again with another Rover Cast. You already know. Super excited to be here and talk about the game that we've all been anticipating for, which is Wuthering Waves. Really excited about this one. So I can't wait to hear you guys' thoughts and opinions and all that. So ready to just dive in. You already know.
Yeah, man. As Life has mentioned, I'm Zoxaskoon. You can just call me Zox, though. It's a little bit easier to pronounce. But yeah, I am a Wuthering Waves content creator. I make other content, but for the basis of what I'm focusing on right now, it is Wuthering Waves. And I'm just really glad to have the opportunity to be here and to, I guess, be amongst others that also share the same exact love currently. So I'm really, really excited, man. I really am.
Awesome. And we're excited to have you. Thank you for coming on. And we have a very special podcast today. One thing I do want to say, just to kind of date this podcast to a degree, the closed beta test 2 has been announced. It is hot on our tails, basically. Like it's very closely approaching. So the February 19th, that'll be in about like 2 weeks-ish from now. And so excited, hype levels on 1,000. So let's get into the episode. Like I said, we have a very special podcast today. We're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be covering 2 kind of different topics today. It's kind of going to be like a part 1, part 2 sort of thing in terms of the podcast. The first thing that I want to talk with you all about is something that is very near and dear to my heart, because and I believe it's to all of ours, to be honest with you. If you are somebody who is in the Wuthering Waves community, I guarantee you that you're going to find value in this podcast, because hopefully we can equip you all with some responses to some of the things that you guys have probably come in contact with, and just kind of thinking about the best ways to approach those conversations. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to have a little bit of a court session today. All right. We are in court. Just, get, Ace Attorney all up, and we are going to address some of the allegations that have been placed against Wuthering Waves.
Objection.
All right? Exactly. So get ready, everybody. There's been a lot of things that people have said about Wuthering Waves, a lot of things that have not necessarily been the most accurate and on the mark. And so we just want to address a lot of those things today. We're going to be talking about some of the unhealthy comparisons that people have been making. We're going to be talking about, is the game being rightfully hyped? Is it being overhyped? Is this just going to be another game that gets hyped up and then ends up falling flat on its face? This difference between, people who have actually played the game before versus have not played the game before, and kind of addressing what is Wuthering Waves and what is it not, so that we can have a very healthy and kind of sober-minded approach to how we look at the game. Rightful expectations. So that's what you guys can expect for today on this podcast episode for the first half. The second half is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to hold off for what exactly it is, but when we get to it, I guarantee you will be entertained. So, without further ado, let's get started. First thing that I want to kind of pose to everybody is this. There's been a lot of talk about the fact that this game is going to be just another game that's hyped up, you know, in the weeks till its launch, and it's going to fall flat on its face. People will play it for a little bit, get bored after a month, you know, and then kind of drop it, right? Or it just won't like hit the levels that it does at launch for much longer. So I kind of want to address that because I don't believe that's the case at all, to be honest with you. I think this game is going to have legs. I'm honestly certain that this game is going to have legs. I mean, I think we've seen, to be honest, like some patterns that yield themselves toward that. We've seen patterns in other games that kind of led them to that direction. Whereas I don't think that the direction that they're going with Wuthering Waves, based on just all the information that we've gotten so far, is going to go in that direction. What do you think about that, Zox?
So I feel like first and foremost, I kind of look at a couple of different factors when we're talking about when a game is being overhyped, right? A lot of the times you have to look at like one thing, right? The audience, you have to look at the company, and then your own personal feelings about it, right? So when I look at those two things, we'll start off with the company. I think Kuro has done a really good job with creating this narrative. Like you've seen since we've been hyping up the game, they haven't like started pushing out advertisements like, yeah, we're going to destroy this game. You know, we're going to put this game in the dirt. They have been truly and purely focused on their game, right? Yeah. And so I think that that's the thing that's fueling us even more, because I think I can even say for a lot of players that really are just coming to enjoy themselves in the Wuthering Waves space, we want Wuthering Waves to be great, right? We're not worried about the other games. And I think that that goes into my personal kind of outlook on the game, being that I was able to actually play it. When I was playing Wuthering Waves, I wasn't thinking about any other game. I was trying to actually figure out, how does this game's layout work? Like, what could they potentially add to it to make it better? Because the other construct about this whole idea of a game versus this game versus that game, that's kind of like games in general. Like that's always going to be the case. There's always going to be something you can compare. Oh yeah, they all slice, slash swords. So it's like, okay, yeah, they all do that. But in its own right, it's still executing something unique, whether it be the character design, the gameplay, the lore. And I think that the basis of like all of this is really where the company has lied a lot of the grounding for everything, is that they're pushing this narrative of, okay, yeah, like, I mean, I'm pretty sure they see this, right? They see the Wuthering Waves versus this. They see that, but they've made sure that they've stuck to their guns on, we're going to purely focus on us, right? And they haven't done it by saying that, but they've done it by the action of how they continue to pump out content. You haven't, like I said, you just haven't seen anything really even emphasizing or taking low blows or shots at other companies to kind of emphasize like, yeah, we're trying to be better than them. It seems like they're trying to be the best version of themselves. So whenever somebody comes to me and is like, this game's gonna die.
We're gonna die. Think positive. We're gonna die quickly.
A lot of the times, I'm not even gonna lie, I don't even like really engage it, because I feel like it is a very it's a personal preference, right? So I think that it kind of goes into that concept, like, hey, we can agree to disagree, but you'll see. it's kind of where I leave it at,
100.
So.
I've had that same thing happen to me, where it's just like, I just think you guys haven't tried it yet, Were you about to say something, Lobo?
Yeah, I was gonna chime in on like just the whole question in general. Like, Zox had a good like point with like company and audience, right? So company does take a big factor, right? But like if we're gonna use Tower Fantasy as a reference, like there was like a lot of problems when the game was first coming out. Like it had a lot of issues with like logging in, servers crashing. I mean, there's a lot of gotcha in the game. That was something that I didn't personally like, but the game wasn't a bad game. Like I thought it was actually pretty fun. really engaging. At the beginning of the spike of Tower Fantasy, community was pretty cool. Like there was a lot of people getting involved, people farming for like mounts together. I really like that aspect of Tower Fantasy, but the actual just like the gacha was just like too much. It was overbearing. It was overwhelming for me personally. I didn't want to be spending so much money for like a skin or the characters, like, you know, like it's a 5-star character kind of game. It's not really a 4-star character. Like they've been out for, the game has been out for like 2 years, right? And they're not making new 4-star characters. Like it's the same ones since launch. So like it's really just a 5-star character game, which I do not like either. I wish they would change that. They're probably not going to, but yeah, I mean, you know, there's a market for even a game like that. There's people still playing the game. You know, it's not really, it's not out of business yet. I mean, they haven't shut down their studio. So it's not really a dead game. It's more like, I think when people make that assumption that, oh, this game will flop, like how Tower Fantasy flopped, like Tower Fantasy hasn't flopped. Like if they're still in business and making money, they haven't flopped yet. So
can I speak to that?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. You're good.
I've had that conversation before, actually. Literally, when I was streaming the game back in CBT1, somebody came into my stream and kind of was asking that, and they were like, you know, they kind of mentioned that conversation, and I basically was just telling them, you can have a Fortnite game, like a game like Fortnite, and then a game like Apex Legends. Both games are doing fine. Obviously, one of them is a mammoth in its space, but both games can exist and thrive. Like nobody's out here saying that Apex Legends is a dead game, but I guarantee you, if you looked at the financial earnings, you could potentially think that, because you'd be like, oh my gosh, or like from a percentage, right? Like not the actual numbers, but just like, oh, this thing, it made like, you know, 15, 30 times the revenue that the other one made. But it's clearly doing fine. Like Call of Duty, Fortnite, Apex Legends, Valorant, they can all exist, Rainbow Six, whatever. Like they can all exist in the same space. Street Fighter, Tekken, you know, Guilty Gear, you know, like Blaze Blue, right? Like all these games, and you know, I could name a couple more, but just for the sake of keeping it short, like all these games can exist in the same space and they can all thrive. And so like to your point, like Tower is still in operation, you know what I'm saying? And I know there's gonna be some people who are, you know, I've seen the numbers myself, I get it. But even if we weren't to use Tower, even if we were to use something like Dragon Ball Z Dokkan Battle, right? Like there are games out there that are doing, they're making it basically. Not everybody's going to be Michael Jordan, but I guarantee you that, you know, that person who's like the 10th man or whatever on the bench, bro, is like chilling. You know what I'm saying? So point being, it doesn't have to be this, you know, whatever other game, as long as it's like PGR. And you know, Connor could definitely speak to this. Just like PGR is doing well. They're clearly doing well. People are excited about the game still to this day. It's not the other games, but it's still doing well. So it's like you don't have to, it doesn't have to be that other game just to be considered doing well. So yeah.
Yeah, I gotta jump in here now because you guys have been saying so much. I just gotta throw a few things out there. So first off, Zoxus, you had said before, like you're seeing, you know, what the company's doing, and you commented a little bit on the kind of advertising that they're doing. You know, not doing the comparison. Bro, I'm just stoked they're advertising. Like, you know, like when you're talking about that kind of stuff, and you're saying like, you know, what actions are the company taking? Like Kuro is notorious for being poor on advertising and what they did with PGR.
Yes.
So I think you can look at the evidence in terms of the amount of money they put behind marketing their game and the amount of effort they're putting into bringing players along on that journey. It speaks volumes in terms of how much they value the product that they're actually working on. This is not a cash grab. This is not something that they're just gonna like toss out there and be like, oh, hopefully some people spend some money on it and then we'll move on. Like building an open world is freaking expensive. Yeah, putting that kind of marketing behind it is freaking expensive. Like this
language, Connor, please.
Sorry. Oh, sorry. Is really, 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 really expensive. So like I think like that alone, like I think even just the marketing side of it, that's like a huge check for me in terms of like the value that they're putting behind it. But also like you were, again, Zox, as you were saying, like, looking at what they're trying to do in the comparison, like, yeah, Wuthering Waves, they're not the first to do an open world game. And but they are working to leave their own mark on that genre with their own character design, with their own world design, with the boss design, and the amount of feedback that they're bringing in from their players. They're really trying to craft something new and unique for players to experience. Like the developer vlog and hearing the work that they put behind it. Like I sound like such a Kuro, like a shill. For
you work for Kuro by any chance?
Don't put me on payroll. Like legitimately though.
So
like,
about that access to the CBT2 though.
Yeah.
There are so many other companies that are completely opaque in terms of like their game development path, what they think of player feedback, and they just it seemingly seem to ignore everything and just do whatever the heck they want. That is not what we're seeing here.
Connor out here with $1 million words, like.
Yo, I'm
so
still
opaque.
spitting fire, boy.
Yeah.
I was just like,
yeah, I can even add to that. Like that idea, man, like it's true, right? And I even feel like for what players are really truly looking for, right? It's the big thing that you kind of ended that off with is players are looking for a company that's going to make them feel valued, right? And I think that Kuro has a long history of doing that. Yes. So the quote unquote overhype, granted, I get it, like from game to game, games can be treated differently, but that's a pattern that they have poured into Wuthering Waves. So like that's kind of even always been the case, like even down to the launching of PGR and like how the Discord was made, and like they just really try to always make sure fans are involved in the process. And I mean, even down to the development stuff, it's like that was a really, really big component of us being able to see them in a very vulnerable state, right? Like companies don't like to talk about their failures like that in a public setting to what is now almost 4 million people on that video. Like, hey, yeah, we screwed up real bad, guys. And yeah, we had to redo everything. They don't like that, right? And so when you have, for what I feel like what the average person that is consuming these kinds of games or playing these kinds of games are looking for, they're looking for something that's relatable, right? To say, hey, we're no different than you guys. We make mistakes, but we are also willing to do better and, rectify those things and take more feedback and implement changes. I think that to me, it's kind of going back to the humanity that's kind of been lost in the gaming industry. I feel like, going back to some of my favorite games like the Gears of War team or, the Halo team, and why those games were so great. It wasn't just because they were good games by design. They had teams that were willing to sacrifice holidays and really we want players to pick this game up and love it, right? And I feel like that's what we're getting. We're getting that yin and yang between us and the developers, 100%.
Yeah, and I gotta speak to something else here, because we were talking a little bit about like the idea of like a dead game or like the fallout or something that happens. Like with most games when they first launch, they blow up. Tons of people will give a game a shot, even if it's not their kind of game, because they want to see, what's trending, what's going on. Let me see how things are happening. Wuthering Waves, with the attention and the hype that it's getting, is going to have a lot of people experiment with it. And it is going to blow up at the very least, I would say, in the first week to 2 weeks that it's launched. And we're going to see some really high player numbers, really high concurrent player numbers, and it's going to be big. But it will fall off. Every game does. Every game that has an initial blow up always has it hits a peak, it will come down. And that is normal, because what the game is doing is it's finding its core audience, which is what you guys are talking about, when talking about Tower of Fantasy, is that it's going to work its way into that core audience. Now, I'm also not saying that Wuthering Waves is going to be small. I think Wuthering Waves is going to be big, but I think like when we're like, there's going to be a flood. I guarantee you. Like, pin this video. I'm calling a shot here. When Wuthering Waves launches, it's going to have a really great first 2 weeks. there's going to be some feedback that's going to come out of it. And then immediately there's going to be a storm of people leaving the game and going back to other games. And then they're going to pull out the charts and they're going to pull out like, oh, look, these are the player numbers. Like, look, it's going down. And they're just going to try and cause a lot of that panic in the community of like, oh yeah, dead game, nobody's playing. When in actuality, when you're looking at the comparisons, that it's like, no, this is 100% a normal life cycle for a game. So I'm going to say, don't take the bait. Don't do it. I think it's going to be way better than that. Hopefully, this doesn't age like milk. Let's just put it that way. I can't believe Lifeview would shaft Mortal Kombat like that. I can't believe you didn't mention Mortal Kombat.
I knew somebody. I was like, I'm missing something. There's some game.
My boys Scorpion and Sub-Zero are pissed.
Right? Noob Saibot about to like come out the shadows. Like he's gonna come out of this screen right here. He's gonna be like, oh, got him. Nah. But yeah, man. Like. I really think the biggest thing for me is just like it's because people haven't gotten a chance to play the game, so they really don't know what they don't know. You know, it's really a thing of like having the veil lifted off of your eyes and just being like, oh wow, I see the light. Like it's there's this thing called Plato's cave. And it's I think it's an anagram, but it's basically a story that represents a larger truth, right? A parable.
Sorry, you said Plato's closet the whole time, and I was just like, are we going clothing shopping?
Yeah, I was thinking the
same. Exactly. Plato's cave. Shout out to Plato. Well, hey, look, sponsorship, baby. But yeah, Plato's cave. And to make the long and short of it is basically this thing of like there was a group of people who grew up their entire lives in a cave, and I think their entire bodies were like chained down, even their necks, to the point where the only thing they could see is in front of them. And they saw in front of them only, and behind them was a wall. What they didn't know is that on the other side of that wall, there were a group of people who were making a shadow puppet show right in front of the people who were chained up. And in essence, that was their entire life. All they could see is what's in front of this, in this like the shadow puppet. They think that that's the real world, like because that's all they've ever known. And then one day, one guy ends up getting released. He gets up, walks out the cave, sees the real world for the first time in his life, and he gets like shocked, just like not even sure how to process everything. Eventually, he comes back and he comes to his senses. And he's just like, you know, it's all a lie. Everything's a lie. Like we've been under this false illusion this entire time. And so he goes back to the people and he's like, hey guys, like this isn't the real world. And then they're just looking at him like, you're crazy. What are you talking about? Like, you know, you've been chill this whole time. Where's all this nonsense coming from, right? And he's just like, how do I explain to you that what you're looking at isn't the real thing? You're looking at an illusion, you know, a false representation. And it's just this idea of like, once you see the light and then you try to come back to somebody and say like, hey, you know, this isn't what you think it is. I know you have this, like, I know you're so hard pressed on your opinion that this is just going to be another one of those things, right? Whereas for the person who's actually seen the light, they're just like, how can I show you that what you're looking at and your thought process isn't actually there? And so the fortunate thing in this scenario is that soon a lot more people are going to be able to see the light. A lot more people are going to be able to try closed beta test 2. And the crazy thing is, and I've said this to Lobo before in our conversations, I would have been okay with the first version of Wuthering Waves. I thought that thing was amazing. I played that thing like nobody's business, and like 16-hour streams sometimes. Like it was crazy. I enjoyed that game a lot, and I was okay with the first iteration of it. Yeah, the story could use some work, but it's like it's a closed beta test. You give them some feedback, you know, they like fix little things here and there, and it's just like. But the combat was great. The open world, like you have to start somewhere. But the fact, and this kind of speaks to their testament, right? The fact that they went back and actually like reworked the graphics. They added like, they have weather mechanics now, which one of the things I've said before, I want those things to hit. Like, I don't want it to rain for like 2 seconds every 3, 4, 5, 6 hours of gameplay. Like, I want it to consistently rain. I hope there's like a setting, to be honest. Like I want there to be a setting to where it's like moderate, heavy, and like I can make it rain frequently or something like that, because or like make it just torrential, whatever it is, frequently. Because like I love that stuff. I love when I can, do that. And plus, like maybe Sanhua, right? Like maybe she can freeze enemies when it's raining easier. I don't know, just saying. But yeah, so point is, because we have been able to see the light, right? We're just kind of we're those crazy people right now who are just coming back to the people in the cave saying, hey, those ideas you have, they're not the real thing. I want to show you, come into the light. And I just can't wait for people to get an opportunity to try it. So
Man, I feel pulled back to philosophy 101, diving back into Plato's cave. It's been a long time since I had to deep dive.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. I want to kind of get into this next part of the conversation, right? When it comes to Wuthering Waves, there's a lot of different comparisons, and I really just wanted to get into this idea of what is actually going to be the factors that allow Wuthering Waves to stand out, kind of an evolution from that original concept we talked about with like, hey, look, this isn't just going to be some game that gets hyped up, but even more so, can we speak to the things that it's going to succeed in that will allow it to stand out? So, Connor, as our resident PGR expert, what do you think that they'll end up putting into the game that will allow it to kind of stand out amongst all of its competition?
Yeah, so here's the thing. I think we talk a lot about the combat. And, I'll leave that, to the other guys here if you want to chat a little bit about that. But Wuthering Waves gets emphasized a lot for its fast-paced action combat, and is often PGRs used as the comparison as to the evidence for that and Kuro's ability to develop on that. However, something that often gets slept on is the story in PGR, simply because of the format that it's presented in. It's a light novel format. It's a lot of reading that you just have to sit there and tap through. And it can be a little bit jarring sometimes going through that story, because you go from fast-paced action combat where you're fighting all these enemies, all of a sudden, full stop. Okay, now I got to tap through and read for 5 minutes. And that can be hard on people. And realistically, I think is one of the major reasons that the story is not something that a lot of people are aware of in Punishing Grey Raven, simply because of the format that it's presented in. But the quality of the story is there. The writing is there. The development of the characters is there. It's a slow start, but it sets the foundation for what happens later on in the game. Wuthering Waves has an opportunity to take the writing capabilities and the storytelling and the world building ability of Kuro from that was established in PGR and put it into a format that is way more enjoyable for players from a gameplay perspective, that doesn't feel so disjointed from the gameplay. And I think we've already seen little elements of that in the complexity of the boss fights, where it goes from fighting the boss to scripted animated cinematics where something goes on to continue to develop. Often in PGR, that turns into text. And that's where that jarring part comes into it. But no, we see how it totally flows from one element to the next, from the scripted portions to the gameplay portions, in a really good way. And knowing that there was some complaints about the quality of the story in Wuthering Waves, that has just had a massive overhaul, I am extremely optimistic that the storytelling is going to rival other games. And where a lot of people said Wuthering Waves might not be the story, that people are expecting from, but the gameplay is going to be great. I'm a flip. I'm an advocate for that I think the story's got potential. I really do.
And if I were just to say something, I might ruffle some feathers. I'm okay with the smoke, so let's have this conversation. I think that it has the potential to not just rival, but to beat. I think one thing that people don't realize is a story is more than its plot, right? And I think that there's games out there that have really good plots, but the story is not all that. The execution, you have the premise is oh, that's very interesting. But if the whole point is just, I'm just sitting, waiting for the eventual thing to happen, the eventual plot to unfold, the question is, what's driving me throughout that experience? What's kind of keeping me going? That is your story. The plot is the bones, but the story is kind of the thing that's being discussed within the world that you set. And that's not always going to be the most engaging thing for people, depending on how you execute it, right? So I'm not so much saying here that, oh yeah, Wuthering Waves is going to like 10 out of 10 knock it out of the park, and it's going to destroy every other game story and humble them, but it will be great. But what I am saying is that I think it's probably going to do a very competitive, if not potentially better job. And I don't even think that that's a stretch, just because I think we have a tendency to sometimes overpraise certain game stories that in all reality might not be as good, or at least so high up on the totem pole that they can't be touched as some people think. Like, there's a difference, again, between having a really good plot and telling a good story on top of that plot. And so I just want to make sure that we're not like putting certain stories so high that they're like, oh, you have to get on this level of storytelling. It's just like, but is the storytelling really all that? Or is the plot all that? And so that's kind of just, in terms of like, I think some storytelling could use a little bit of humble pie. Not saying they're bad. Other games and stories are bad, but I'm just saying, like, remember, there's a difference between story and plot.
Going back to just Wuthering Waves, like, how do we first define it as like the game that it is, right? So it is an open world action RPG game, right? So like, it's not a turn-based game. I just want to put that out there, and it's not an MMO, okay? Because I've seen a lot of people categorize it under that, and I would like to believe that Wuthering Waves and Kuro is not trying to define it as that specifically. So another something I'm really excited about just this game in general, and the reason why I'm overhyped about it in general too, is because this game could potentially be the gateway for like other games that want to aspire to be like Wuthering Waves, which is great because there's going to be times when maybe I need a break, or maybe, alternate. A lot of people do that with gacha games, right? So that's one thing
Never.
What?
You will farm echoes. You will be happy, and you
Mm,
won't complain about it.
Yeah, I'm just saying in general, like I'm gonna be playing that game for a while. Like I'm not gonna put the keyboard or controller down, right? But it to get to a point with like just Wuthering Waves in general, like for sure, open world action RPG game. That's what it is. That's what it's going to be. And combat, like so far in the gacha space, like, and it's not out yet, but out of all the gacha games that I've tried, like I've tried a lot, but the combat is just not there like how other games are right now. Every gacha game that has come out has a priority or something that they're really focused on. Snowbreak is one. Snowbreak loves, they're the fan service game. Like, people love the characters in there. They want the waifus, right? Aether Gazer's good. They have a big fan base too, but it doesn't do as good on the content side from what I see. Like, I don't see a lot of people. See, that's another thing that I was gonna say. Like, it's hard to have both perspectives. The perspective of just a gamer, and then the perspective of a content creator. Because like for me, I'm thinking like, what's gonna help me like, be able to make content consistently? What game is gonna help me provide that? And I could share that with the community, right? So, a lot of games don't update as fast or have as much content to do as quickly as you can, like to get that content out. But for the person that's like an actual gamer, they don't have to really worry about that. They're just playing the game and enjoying themselves, So like, it's so hard to answer that question specifically, because I go in it with like two perspectives, right? But with Wuthering Waves specifically, just from the experience I've had, like I was enjoying it. I was having fun making content. I was just pure joy. Like I was regaining a spark that I lost in the gacha space, and that was just from their CBT. So I can't imagine when global, I could play it anytime I want, is going to be the best feeling in the world. I can't wait.
Yeah, I mean, after listening to like all you guys, I've like in my head been kind of like refining like what I wanted to actually say because I'm like, wait, these are like all really like good points. Because yeah, you have so many different angles you can kind of look at that at, right? Even to like what you're saying, Loba, like as far as like being a content creator but also being a gamer, I think that that's the reason why, like for me, like if somebody asks me like, hey man, like do you like what do you love about Wuthering Waves or do you love Wuthering Waves? The answer for me for both content creation and being a gamer is yes, right? It's so it's kind of like I love the game as a gamer, but I also know I'm gonna like it as a content creator. And I feel like I had to look at like, okay, what are the possibilities that Wuthering Waves are opening up for me as a gamer and as a content creator, right? Because that's a very, very valid point. So, okay, let's start with the echoes, right? The echoes, yes, other games have elements or aspects like that, but then they had to sprinkle something that I can equally say like people are going to like, right? Shiny echoes. So you can easily turn that into, hey guys, let's go hunt for shiny echoes. Like now that's a whole objective. It's not like it's just like this singular thing where it's like, okay, we have this other component. Yeah, it gives you stats, but you can turn it into something else. And I feel like with like the development of the community, obviously I think the biggest thing that's been shown is obviously the combat, right? And I even would say playing the combat itself, there is a certain level of skill with each character that you use, right? And I feel like I've seen a lot of people saying like, oh, well, it's one or two things. Games like Genshin, right? It gets thrown out there very loosely, or this is going to be too complicated for me. Now, I spent the CBT2 playing with a character named Tao Chi very, very intentionally because she's
CBT2?
or sorry, CBT1. Sorry. CBT2 is on my brain. Hey, listen. Don't get me caught up, man. I'm not a leaker. I'm not a leaker.
I need the connects, you know.
I'm not a leaker.
We'll edit this out. We'll talk later.
It's funny how all you guys
these CCs coming on here having all these secret access to Kuro and all the crap. Further had something in the last one too. I'm tired of it. Tired of this unequal treatment.
Listen, no, I was CBT1.
Hashtag small creators matter.
Hashtag can I have some too? Like,
right?
yeah, I know.
Share the love.
Listen, man. Yeah, so yeah, I played with character Tao Chi, right? Because I was just kind of looking at that element of it, and what I felt like they were doing right. And it's like what being able to execute and cater to, again, finding that audience, which I feel like is going to be gamers that love a higher skill level of combat within the game. So it's not just the typical like, hey, I slashed a sword, or this unit is just super broken, so they're just gonna carry me through everything. There is like that aspect of, understanding timing, the mechanics of the boss. I even did a video recently kind of talking about how the co-op aspect of the game isn't just as simple as just running in there and you ooga booga. You could even see how there are elements like on some of the bigger bosses, like the tortoise boss. You can have one person aggroing or tanking the damage from the boss while somebody else is working on the legs or working on the bell. So it gives you more elements to, okay, how can we build upon, making this more of like more of a strategic game versus it just being like, we have these overpowered characters and we can just do this. Because even when you go and fight some of the more smaller bosses that are like the biker, like the Hell Biker, I think it is, or if you go fight Crownless, those bosses, even better. The one that teleports, I forgot what his name is. I forgot what that boss
Thunder
is.
Squama?
Yeah.
Thunder Squama, yeah.
Yeah, that boss in particular, it's really hard to create a singular strategy where it's like, hey, you tank, I do DPS. Because that boss teleports so much, it's going to be aggroing different people at different times. So the way that you might approach that boss is going to be very differently than, another said boss. And considering that we're seeing this in what I'm calling Generation 1, there's so much more development to see with what Kiro has already put out with like their predecessor game with PGR. It's like, okay, they have gone through that cycle of, hey, this is what we want players to experience. And then building upon that, I feel like that is what's also kind of transferring into Wuthering Waves. Players are like, hey, man, this is just the beginning. We're going to be getting more invested into the game as we get deeper into it. And so like it's like you have the combat, you have the echoes. I even think one thing that is going to be another thing that ties the game, and it kind of goes into Connor's point. It's like with the story, it's that environment aspect, right? So I had to ask myself as a content creator, what exactly is everybody's reason of picking up this game exactly the same as mine, right? And so when I asked that question, and I'm realizing, like, I used to say things like, well, story doesn't really matter. People skip that, you know? So it's like, then I have people responding like, no, man, I actually stuck with the game because of the story. Or, you know, it was the environment. Like, dude, like being able to go into different like environments and then finding like the little secrets and like whatever it is that they have going on in that specific space. I'm excited for the next region. I don't even care about the next characters coming out. I want to be able to explore the next region. So when I kind of start looking at that, I feel like what Wuthering Waves in its entirety is going to be doing well is it has something for everyone, right? And that's something that a game is. I see a lot of games have a really hard time with being able to balance that because they'll have things either cater too much to in-game players and there's nothing for newer players to really do. You know, they're kind of just watching the in-game players have fun and they're like, hey, I want to, can we come over there? You know, or no. It's the opposite. In-game players are bored and they have nothing to do. And there's a lot of like new player stuff to get you into the stuff. But once you get to that in-game point, then you're also a part of that collective group of individuals that have nothing to do. So I feel like we can answer it according to like some of the things we've seen. But I think the other portion is also up to Kuro to be able to execute something where what I feel like I'm confident in is that if they see something doesn't work, they're going to be willing to readjust and try something else. So I feel like that's been another issue that a lot of other games have had, which is where I feel like Kuro's going to succeed in, is the ability to be able to adjust and shift quickly. Because a lot of games will know that they have issues, and it kind of goes into the Tower of Fantasy thing, right? Like Tower of Fantasy by nature wasn't a bad game. It was just that when they had the issues presented, they didn't really do much with it right away. It was just kind of like, okay, yeah, we know you're having a terrible experience, but you know, we'll get to it when we get to it. And so that's what really kind of catered the most, I felt like, to player dissatisfaction, and it made it like, okay, well, we were expecting this and we didn't get this, and ultimately kind of led to where it's, you know, currently at. And you know, I just feel like, again, everybody's point of view with it is like very valid, right? It's very, very important to understand like there's so many different aspects to the game, and I think that there's nothing wrong with having something that is familiar in the game. I think people kind of harp on that, and it's like, I'll even throw this out here. What is exactly bad about the comparison of Genshin Impact? Like truly, like if you enjoyed the game and you're like, well, this game kind of reminds me of Genshin. I want to hop on that game and play it because I like Genshin too. Like that, it just by nature, that doesn't really become always a bad thing. It's kind of like this idea that we have to separate the two and they have to be two different things and you can't enjoy both. And it's like, you can play both, you can enjoy both. But I think for the respect of the game itself, for me personally, I'm allowing Kuro to cook Wuthering Waves and it be about Wuthering Waves. So it's just kind of that, right? It's like, for what, you know, other games have going on, I try not to add that into the narrative because I feel like as a community, we're going to be experiencing this game as Wuthering Waves. And for those that stick around and end up enjoying the game, we're going to end up in the same position as others in the other communities. Like they like, I already know Genshin Impact players hate the fact that when they try a new game, they're like, oh wait, you play Genshin? You know, they're like, we don't want that. We want it to be like, oh, okay, cool. You're a Wuthering Waves player. That's fine. And so I think it's kind of like that mutual understanding and like just kind of that respect that, you know, it just kind of has to become that norm, you know, that passes over to game essentially. But, you know, I might be asking for a lot, but.
Yeah. Hold on, level me with me here for a sec, fellas. You said it a couple times there, Zox.
Yep.
Is it Kuro?
Oh, Kuro. It's Kuro or something like that. So I'm really bad. I'm really bad with this. I always say Kuro, and that's just like I don't want to.
I heard you saying Kuro. Like a medical cure.
Yeah,
that's what I kept hearing.
Listen, dude,
because I say Kuro, like more like a.
I am the king of mispronunciations, right? My community screams at me 24/7 because I like almost say my own name wrong 24/7. So, there's that element. So, hey, everybody in the chat, if you're gonna eat me alive, just know, taking the L, and I'm fully aware I need to go back to school.
No, look, I'm not attacking. I was literally looking
No,
for
you're
like,
good.
hey, have I been saying this wrong for the last year?
It's
That
like
I've
me
been
with
covering PGR?
pugilist.
Oh, pugilist.
Yeah, pugilist. Like I was
I
sitting
say
here the whole time. I was
Kuro.
like,
I say Kuro games.
I say Kuro too.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
like,
and it's honestly it could very much be Kuro.
It could
or
be Kuro. Or
Like,
Kudo.
yeah, there's like
Kudo.
the
Yeah, I had
Japanese version
someone
of
on
Kuro.
Twitter actually say it was like KOORO, and I was like,
Kuro.
We should get
Kuro.
the
I
comment
was
section
like-
to tell us how to pronounce it.
Yeah,
Yes,
somebody
everyone in the comments.
phonetically get that in there. We appreciate you for that.
Like,
I want
I'm
to speak on.
struggling out here, okay?
I want to speak on what Zoc said, because my answer to this thing of what separates Wuthering Waves is essentially, like I said, I think the combat is very much the easy thing. But even beyond that, at a higher level, I think what separates Wuthering Waves from a lot of these other games, well, I won't say a lot, but I'll just say what separates Kuro, quesadilla, like whatever.
I
What
think it's pronounced
separates
Quesadilla.
quesadilla?
Could I have some quesadillas with my fajitas, please?
Oh my gosh! What separates them from other games is the
I'm
fact
sorry,
that
I know
they're
I just
willing.
killed Loba. I just killed Loba inside. His inner like Spanish was just like he
Oh,
died a little
gosh,
bit,
you're
so
right.
You're welcome.
I'm sorry.
You're welcome, Loba.
Good, all good.
Loba's he's gonna cancel us. All love. But what separates them, in my opinion, is the fact that they're actually willing to take feedback and actually execute on that. I think that's the biggest thing. No matter we could talk about the combat all day. We could talk about, the implementation of in-game friendly elements. How much better the gacha will be than other games in its sphere. But even beyond that, feedback. Like, I think it goes without saying that over the years we've seen drama after drama after drama after drama after community outrage after community outrage about not really the combat of games, not really the true end game, even though there's been conversations about end game. But there's this saying my wife told me, where there's like this thing when they say, like, you're talking to women and you're dealing with an issue and they say it's not about the nail, because like as men sometimes we have this thing where we're like trying to fix the problem, right? And it's like, okay, there's a problem, I'm trying to fix it, I see this thing, and they're like, it's not about the nail, like it's not about the thing that's kind of sticking out, it's about what's underneath. And I think one of the big things with a lot of these situations is what's underneath the concern about, we want this in-game content, or we want this quality of life feature, or we want this, insert whatever thing here. It's the conversation that is lacking. This degree of like, if I say something, will you at least acknowledge it? Hashtag fix, insert whatever you want to say, right? Like, that is the thing that I believe that Kuro is really showing, that they are going to be able to stand out as a company, and Wuthering Waves is going to stand out as a game because of that factor alone. What's up, Loba?
Well, I was gonna also say, to add to the point of them listening to feedback, as of like us like doing this podcast, like I'm pretty sure everyone here has noticed that they're also showing appreciation towards actual content creators too. Like having first of all, like having 2 content creators on their dev talk, that's a big thing. That's
Yes.
like you're showcasing like a content creator on like the development of your game, which is crazy. And they're also doing little giveaway like boxes. I don't know if you guys have noticed on Twitter.
Yeah.
To like, these like other
Mine got
content
lost in the mail,
creators.
I
I'm
think.
like, oh damn, like that's cool. Can we get some too?
What I thought about when you look at that dev interview? There's a painting. I don't know if it's Michelangelo or whoever, but you know the painting of like God and Adam kind of
Yeah, the
touching
thing. Yeah,
fingers.
yeah.
Yeah, like in a way, that's kind of what I thought about when the way you described that conversation. Because in reality, it kind of is that
Mm-hmm.
where it's like you have the creator of this concept, and you have the in essence, you could call it a creation.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could call the content creator a creation of the creator of the game, because if they're covering the thing that you created, you essentially spawned their involvement at the very least, right? And so it's just like this connection of, in the same way with the Michelangelo's like this connection of God and man, where it's like you have the connection of the creator and the creation, essentially.
Exactly. It
And
also
so
builds
it's
trust. Also,
representative. Yeah, exactly. It's
you
like
build
it's
a
that
lot of trust with that.
representation of that relationship that they're trying to say, yeah, we want to do this thing with you all. And so I'm just hoping that that is, like you said, that's unprecedented. In my opinion, I believe that's unprecedented. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that within this space. And setting that standard at the forefront, and I think you were saying like that video is like doing numbers. So like, yeah, that's huge. And so like I said, I did want to touch really briefly though on the combat, because like it's kind of hard not to. Like the combat for Wuthering Waves, I was having a conversation today, and the combat for Wuthering Waves, I think a lot of people who haven't played the game just don't realize. Like as a casual person, or just not as involved, like maybe like you really enjoy certain aspects, you do like the combat, but you're probably not gonna like go in and like lab out the most optimal things, but you're having a blast playing it, right? You could be the type of person who like goes in there, does a cool rotation where you just like, you got the little knock-up draft ability. You switch into the other character, you do like 2 skills or something in the air, then you knock them back down, and you're just like, bro, aerial combat. And then you could all, and let's say that entire sequence plays out over like 5 seconds or like 3.5 seconds, right? And then you could be like some of the crazy talented people who are able to do take that exact same 3.5 to 5 seconds, start with a knock-up, and I know you all know what I'm talking about, where the guy literally he knocks them up, brings Yang Yang in, does her ability, then switches into Jian, does his ability, then switches into Sanhua, puts her wall there, breaks it, and it's like you both utilize the same 3.5 to 5 seconds, but the difference between those 3.5, 5 seconds and the amount of damage, and once again, that speaks into the free-to-play viability of the game, where it's like, oh, that game, maybe they have a more generous gacha system, but you have to get the characters or the weapons or what have you. So it's like the semblance of free-to-play. And it's like, well, no, because once again, you can take that same 3.5 to 5 seconds. They both had that time, but one person squeezed out like a whole 50k damage, while the other person only got like 10. Now that is just skill. And if you're in a game like it's a turn-based game, for example, you can't do that. There's no skill expression. I mean, I'm not gonna say there's no skill expression, but you can't squeeze out like there's only so far you can go in terms of optimization. Whereas when you have a game that is more of in a 3D environment, and you can set, parry, dodge, counter, the existence of a counter alone creates opportunities, because the difference between like a parry and a counter being, parry is kind of like you take the damage and like you move it away from you, whereas a counter, there's going to be an immediate attack after. And just theoretically, if you're a character that has a counter, and depending on like the cooldown of it, your ability to counter by extension creates higher output opportunities. So once again, within the same time frame, whereas somebody who parried the attack versus you who was able to counter that attack, you guys just essentially took that 3-second time frame. One person did no damage, the other person did damage. And so like I said, there's so much skill expression in the combat of Wuthering Waves that you, if you choose to, can truly like change the way you play the game. And I think when we talk about like the whole 2-month period, right, of time, like, or like 2 weeks, the first 2 weeks, where it's like, okay, they'll play for the first 2 weeks, and then they'll be like, eh. Like, I actually think that's not going to be, at least for the people who are interested in the game, I think they're going to actually get a far more robust amount of enjoyment out of the game, because when they first start playing it, they're just going to be approaching the game from a very simplistic perspective. And then in that first 2 weeks or so, they're doing the story, they're doing the whatever. But then they're going to start seeing clips online, and they're going to be like, oh, wow, I was still just learning how this character works. Because that's the beauty of having that depth, right? They were like, I was just learning how these characters worked. Now you're telling me, not only do I figure out how they work individually, I can also figure out how they work in combination with each other. And then that, and like I said, this is going to be the thing that takes time, because there's a lot of characters in the game. We're going to get a lot of characters early too, and each one of them has a degree of depth. And the other bit that I kind of want to talk about is the 3-person squad. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, 3 people is too little, but I actually think it's a benefit to having only 3. Reason why is because if you have 3 characters, each of those characters' kits have to be kind of in depth, right? To kind of make up for all the possible battle scenarios. Because essentially, if you were to split that into 4, and they were too in depth, you'd kind of have a little bit of a simplification, I guess you could say, potentially, of their kits. But now, what maybe used to be done with 4 characters now has to be done with 3. And so those 3 characters are, like I said, from what we played, are going to be very much in-depth character kits. And we've seen that. Like, these character kits are in-depth. They have a lot of... So I just think that that's going to be a big learning curve for people, to where it's like they might be playing it first off just like, oh, learning how individual characters work. Then they're going to learn how individual characters work in a team. And then that next level of like, oh, there's some crazy stuff I can do. And so I think that is going to kind of give the game just that much more of a leg up in terms of keeping people interested.
Yeah.
Long term. In terms of, especially within that first period, like, there's not going to just be like, oh, I kind of figured what this character can do already, so I'm just kind of like, now I'm just like stuck doing rotations over and over again. That, like, it was cool for the little bit, but now it's not much. No, like, you're going to be able to really have a lot of skill expression. So
yeah, I feel like we're also like kind of tying into that idea of like skill expression. Like, one of the things I deeper dived on with the characters in the CBT1 was that the more, because again, we're dealing with a gacha. So the more copies of the character, which when we're looking at what's going to be more accessible, is obviously going to be the lower rarity. A lot of the characters, like I think his name was Jian or Juan Yan or something like that. The guy with the top hat. In the suit, right?
Wan Wu.
Yeah, Wan Wu. There we go.
I think you were mixing up with Jing Yuan.
Yeah, Jing Yuan, and then there's Jue Yuan. Yeah, there's, oh my god, dude, it's so confusing. Hey, forgive me, audience. I know.
Never. How dare you?
Like, don't watch this guy. He can't pronounce none of the names.
That's my husbando. How dare you mess up his name?
Husbando, not husbando.
Connor Stotts have never messed up a character's name ever in public.
Zhui Yi, I didn't care much for. Like,
who is that?
There's not Zhui Yi.
Definitely not in the previous episode when it called Zhui. No, gosh, I almost did it again.
Listen, man.
I kept saying Zhui Yi, but that was not the character's name.
Oh god, yeah, they're gonna let you know too. Like, hey,
everybody, I'm just gonna say this. There's a reason why we're content creators and not English teachers.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, 100%.
I think there's a reason. You guys starting to kind of see, Okay, I'm just gonna leave it at that.
So yeah, like with that character, and just kind of looking at all the characters' kits, there were certain things that actually made the characters a lot easier to use, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like with his kit, there was like this pillar drop that he does. What a lot of people didn't realize is that the more you invested in him, the bigger the radius of the pillar drop and the longer it lasted. So it gave a crit rate buff, for example. And so when you're kind of looking at the expansiveness of like investing more in your characters and the prolonged play and really the long-term aspect of playing with your characters, or even getting more to invest into those characters, there's that element that then opens up even more doors. So a character may have not initially been a character that you could utilize or combine with someone else, but then that further investment can take that character to a whole new height. And it's like, whoa, okay, this guy just became, maybe in early game, he was just like that character that's like, okay, he's cool to use for like parrying, but now he's like this OP buffer. He offers all these other aspects and other things utility wise. And I think the thing that excites me the most, especially with games that have like a parrying, countering system, like, is I like time frames. Like, I really like that aspect to games because there was like, for example, there was like a lot of things I was like just kind of playing around movement wise. And I even had instances where I would like do a 360, like a ballerina spin around the boss and still like, shoot an uppercut and still get a parry. Like, like really like neat and very nifty style based things that everybody like I've seen has a different style. So there's like those people that like to walk around in slow motion and then they hit their parry. And I'm the guy that's changing characters every time my cooldown resets. And I'm at the next character getting the parry with the next unit. And, so it's like the variation of gameplay into, the style of combat or the style of player you are. I feel like there's that component too, right? It's definitely a lot of layers and a lot more layers that a lot of people, especially from the feedback I've been getting, it's a lot of people that haven't tried the game, and it's a lot more people than we actually even realized that didn't even really know Wuthering Waves was like a thing. Like I'm just like seeing like a lot of people that's like, wait, this is a game? Like, wait, I got to get on this. Like this looks insane. So I think a lot of what we're seeing, even in terms of the harsh or the super critical criticism, is coming from individuals that have been kind of glued to it from the very beginning. Like they're like, hey, I've had this on my radar. I've been watching it for X amount of time, and I've been seeing that development. Whereas like what people are starting to see now, I've been getting a lot more good feedback than I have like this, oh yeah, that's not going to be great. Like I've had more people saying like, dude, I'm ready to try this. And I'm probably going to actually quit this, So that's more of what I've been seeing than anything, to be honest.
I think because it's starting to gain some traction outside of just simply the gacha space. I think it was like really compartmentalized to that early on. And so the biggest voices that came commenting on it were kind of the Genshin community. And I think that's why it kind of started. It had a bit of a bumpy start with how that, launched. But I think now that there's more of this marketing, it's spreading around, it's getting in front of more people, we're starting to see a broader audience start to see the game and be like, I think this looks sweet. Like, I had no idea this was even a thing. So like, I've been seeing a little bit of that too, and I'm excited to see more people kind of, get involved.
I think Genshin was able to do that. The audience that Genshin kind of drew was like those broader audiences of like, oh, I like anime games, or this game looks like a cozy game where like maybe they played The Sims prior and they found out like they got the teapot and the relationship building aspect to it. And they're like, oh, like this can be like my new thing. Like that was the thing for my wife. She played The Sims. And, you got your Animal Crossing type people, Stardew Valley type people, so forth, so on. And like that was very much the bright colors, this atmosphere that it was kind of painting for people. And in this game, I feel like it's similar, where it's like you have people from different type of communities. Like you have the Souls community, you have the Monster Hunter community, you have the Devil May Cry, like combat heavy style community. Pokemon. And so those are the type of people who are looking at this and being like, I don't even play gacha games, but that thing right there, that looks sick. Like, I gotta at least give it a shot, because regardless, like, even myself, right? Like, I was notoriously like a person, I would always make fun of my wife about this. And I was like, you play mobile games? And I know somebody's gonna come at me for that. But it's just like, I was like, oh, wow. But then I was like, this game actually has like a lot of quality to it. Let me give it a shot. And I was like, oh, I play these games now more than I play other games, it seems. It's kind of crazy. And very much so, that's about to be the case when Wuthering Waves drops, where it's just like, this is about to be my main game. And so like I said, I think that's the really cool aspect of it, where it's just like other communities are going to see this. And I really do believe that it's going to bring them in. Because I think, let's be honest, it's something we've been wanting for a long time. I think Sword Art Online, I would say, is probably like part of the genesis of this thing, where it's like wanting that online, or not so much online, but just that open world anime game, right? And I know somebody would say like, oh, Naruto and like, well, to be fair, maybe Naruto, maybe Dragon Ball Z, but I think it was just like this because I think Sword Art kind of created itself as an actual game. We kind of were in that mindset of like, oh, this is a game. It's an anime game. It's an anime that's about a game. And so it kind of just maybe felt like it worked to that degree. And so it's just like this idea of like, can we get an anime open world game? And, like I said, Genshin was kind of the first to really be able to provide that anime-esque experience. And now, like I said, we have that was like the progenitor or whatever. And so now we have these other games similar to kind of how Lobo was saying, Wuthering Waves now has the opportunity to kind of create this next model and see what spawns from that, right? And so, like I said, I'm just looking so forward to it. And I believe that it's just like I said, I'll go back to my original thing. I think a lot of people are stuck in the cave right now. They're seeing the shadow puppet show. They're thinking that that's what real life is. They're thinking that this is just going to be a copy of other games, and it's just going to be like a poor man's, what have you. And they don't really know that outside of that cave is the thing that they were hoping for but never thought they could, like the thing that they didn't even know they wanted. And then when it happens, the veil will be lifted, the shackles will fall off, and they will see the light.
Yeah, I feel like that's like, and this is the one thing I was like kind of thinking about too, and it kind of goes back to what Connor was saying with like the story component. And one of the things that I really think can make or break a game is how relevant the characters are to the player, right? So like one of the biggest things, and what I'm even starting to see is like the people that love Gian, for example, like, this guy is just such a cool character. He has this dragon theme. He uses a spear. He has a sword. He has this long ponytail. And then, we have like Kakarot. This dude looks like Sephiroth. He's coming through going sick, like, all these sword slashes. And one of the things that to me is such an important aspect. And that's another thing I think they're going to, and they have been actually doing like really, really well, is the fan service aspect, right? Because fan service to a degree is like subjective, according to like your likes, dislikes, etc. But I feel like they've been doing it in a very very tasteful way, honestly. Like they've been doing it to where it's like, and I say this all the time, it's not just about the booba, like it's there's more elements to the characters. Like you're getting the the older male characters, you have like the somewhat younger age male characters, you have the female characters. So it kind of again goes to the being relatable, right? Because you're gonna have all different types of people playing the game, all different ages. And so when you have like different types of characters within a game that have different backstories and origins and, factions, because that's another thing that's going to be playing into, the game, the regions, things of that nature, you're going to have more people that's like, you know what, I can't wait till that character's backstory comes or the next story component comes because I got to play that. When that character gets put on raid up and then this is the other thing for me that's like, whoa, I can't wait for this. When they start introducing some of the other characters, like for example, we got to play against Scar in CBT1. We haven't really had that conversation yet about what other characters that are like him that exist in this universe. Like he was that first introduction, and then dude's like weapon is playing cards. Like you're not like, it's just like, okay, we got some stuff we're working with here. So this is like kind of going into that. And that was even one of the first boss fights where I was like, whoa, okay, we were impressed with the parrying. We were impressed with, the dodging and things of that nature. But this is a character that's actually giving me a taste of my own medicine. Like this is like a completely different thing. And so that kind of opens up to what I even feel like is like more so that saying like get good. It's not just going to be about how much money you can spend on the game, right? Like that's what gacha has kind of evolved into. It's like, oh, I got good, bro. spending $10,000 and got this unit maxed out. You know, it's like while it, yeah, you know why? While
This
it's
is my
tuning,
skill right here. Like skill issue. Yeah.
yeah, skill issue exactly. Got that
beat
titanium.
Sounds like a
Scar.
skill
Skill
issue.
Like
saying.
buys weapon packs. Like, you know, like that's usually the metric. And
Leveling up.
exactly. And I feel like that's what we're seeing, right? Is that I felt like that entire closed beta, I didn't feel like, oh man, I wish I had this character. I even played through the game for a bit with just 4 stars. Like I didn't like, and I love Gian as a character, but I was like, I'm gonna need this dude.
I think
like,
I was using more 4 stars
so
too.
good.
I think I was using more of them. They were
Yeah.
really
So
good.
yes.
So well made. Like, oh
Yes.
my god.
Jin, Yang,
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
Taochi.
Sanhua. I'm like, dude, Sanhua is so technical, and she's a 4-star. Like,
gosh,
and I love
so
that
good.
too. I
Can
love
we,
that.
Can we
I
go
love
back
that.
to the Scar discussion really quick? I wanted,
Yeah.
to like throw something out there to make me think. Like I really think that Kuro is like, I don't know if you've noticed, but like Scar is like a very like this guy pops up all the time, like in most of the cutscenes. He's a boss. I really think this guy's super important in the story. I don't know what. I don't have a theory in mind. But Kuro clearly really likes this guy for some reason because he shows up a lot, you know? And he has like all these cutscenes and stuff, you know? So yeah. I just wanted to throw that out there. I thought it was pretty interesting. And then, you know, in the trailer, we see like a girl that almost has like the same color scheme as him. So like brother
yeah, I
and
forgot about
sister.
that.
You know, I was thinking
Yeah.
about that. Like, and she's controlling the echoes with like a wand, right? So, you know, I don't want to dive too deep on the lore. I just thought that like just those two characters are really interesting and they have to be important in the plot, like 100%.
Oh, he's gonna be playable. I'm calling.
Yeah,
the shot right
I
now.
really
He's
hope so.
100%
I
It has
really
to
hope
be.
so. Oh my
That's what-
god.
I mean, it's not a 1-to-1. It's not a guarantee. But like in PGR, a lot of the significant like villains that are introduced, like quite a few of them became playable characters.
What?
Like, later
Oh, that's
on.
awesome.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
A lot of the uniframes, if you've played PGR, are like originally like villains to some degree in the storyline, and then kind of become playable.
Yeah.
But it's more complex than that. But like I'm just calling it right now. It's gonna be a playable character.
Nice.
And just for clarity, in the first CBT, there's a scene at literally the end of the CBT with Scar and that girl kind of talking together. So
yeah.
they're very much in league with each other.
Yeah. They're
so
plotting something, right?
So I actually have a question. It's just popped in my head, right? What do you guys think the kinds of characters, or as far as like what? Because you know how like PGR, it's like, at least for those that play it, you kind of get the concept of like why there's like the same characters being released in different constructs. And it kind of ties into like that aspect that Connor was saying, is like that story element is so important to know, because otherwise you won't get why there's more than one Luna, or why there's more than one Lucia, or Alpha, for example. So I think that's also another thing that I'm kind of like, that's like one thing I'm very curious about with what Kyoto is going to do, is because they have that formula where it's like we can kind of revamp these characters we already have, versus what this seems to be kind of like maybe a much broader kind of scheme in terms of like character development and introducing new characters, and like that interaction of like, this is a big world we're kind of messing around with. So, you know, there's going to be those elements, and people are going to see those characters like, oh, can we get them playable? Can we get them playable? So my question is, do you guys think that they're going to follow that same format or formula of, hey, we're going to take some of your favorite characters in like maybe within the story, have like a Gian that, like, I don't know, rage mode Gian, where he just like at this point, I don't know, like loses it or something, you know, like, or do you feel like they're going to push more of like the bringing on fresh cast members and like, you know, different characters along the way?
I have a theory also on that. I mean, if you don't mind me going live, because I mean, if you want to go, because I already spoke last.
Well, no, I was just gonna say,
Cooking,
I
Loba.
think
Bro,
that
I have. Oof.
I was just gonna say that I think that I'm the one who asks the questions around here, so you need to get in your place.
That's a really good question, though. It really was.
But I just thought about it because we were like all hyped up about the characters. I'm like, dude, I wonder, like, like, what do you guys think about
I'm
that?
joking.
Because
I'm totally
I have
yeah, go for it, Lobo.
I have
just
so
wanted to
much
add
on
that
this.
part.
So
He's not
I have two theories, and you actually made me raise like another like comparing it to another game. So Kingdom Hearts. I'm gonna make a reference of Kingdom Hearts 2. So Kingdom Hearts 2, there's Heartless and Nobodies. So if you become a Heartless, you create a Nobody, which is like another part of you that gets created into the world.
Well, actually,
Yeah, go-
nobodies are the shells.
Yeah, the
The
shells. There we
former
go.
shells.
Yeah, my Kingdom
get me
Hearts
started.
lore is
Life?
rusty. I haven't gone into Kingdom Hearts lore in a long time because it's just too hard to catch up on. Are
you saying that you didn't play all three of
No,
the mobile
no.
games?
I played
Is
all of
that
them.
what
I
I'm
played all of
hearing
them.
from you right now.
I can't keep up with the lore. It's so crazy and confusing. But to that point,
People think the Fate series lore is complicated and crazy. Just look at Kingdom Hearts. I've tried to dive in. I love diving into lore of universes. I've
Man.
tried to dive into Kingdom Hearts. It's freaking wild. It's so hard to keep track.
it's
Like,
complicated. It's the most complicated thing. But
You
basically, like,
don't have advanced degrees. Like it's really not that hard. Like honestly,
it is.
Some people think that you could get like a degree in like a legal degree, and that's required for it. I'm just here
my
to tell
God.
you only need like a year and a half of law school to get it. It's not that difficult.
Yeah. So to my point that I'm gonna say Heartless is the bad echoes in Wuthering Waves, and then the Nobodies is like Nobodies in my point of view. What I think is a purified echo. I'm making that word up, but that's what I've said in previous like videos and stuff. Like so. We don't know what the good version of an echo looks like yet. But the only one that I could think of is Baiji's. Baiji has a companion, and this companion is all white. So if you actually look at Baiji's companion, Yutan, that's his name.
Yeah, Utah.
If you look at like the mark, you can look at the back. It has Tasset marks. So I was like, okay, if it's like white and
Tacet?
bright, yeah, Tasset, yeah. So I was like, oh, this creature it has to be an echo, but it's like a good echo or a purified echo because it's all white version. So that led to like another point where I was thinking like, okay, like, we got that picture today or earlier or yesterday of this new character from they drip marketed, like that was insane. Like I was like, a new character, godly, like what's going on with this character? And a lot of people, like I see in comments, were saying like, oh, like that's like kind of looks like Yang. And I was like, wait, hold on, like are we going this route, like where this is like the purified Yang? And like comparing it to like PGR, how like PGR has like constructs like live, luminance, live, all these lives. Are they going that route? Like it kind of does look like Yang, similar. They have similarities. And then Yang, like she's still good, but she's not like pure yet. Like she's still like she's trying to become pure, but she can't because she's like in between the pure and the good. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's something that I've thought about a lot with this game.
You're spitting right now.
I kind of want to
man, it's
second
insane.
that idea though. That I was kind of thinking about because when you said that her like familiar could be a good echo, that kind of goes into like what they presented with Kakarot so far. How his kind of seemed to become body armor.
Yes.
And I was like, wait a minute.
But
Like,
is that bad or good? Like I can't
Is
tell.
this bad or good? Yeah. Is this like are we on Common Rider vibes right now? Like what?
Looking like Venom, like the symbiote.
Venom,
Exactly.
yeah,
like maybe
like-
it was a bad echo, but he learned to control it and like
Yeah.
make it his. Like it's crazy. It could get really deep. I've been thinking about this all the time. And that picture that they posted today, that picture, like we don't know who that is. Like that's like random. Like. And the character looks so different in design than any other character we've seen. Every other character looks normal. They look like warriors. This character was like, has to be super. She looks powerful. That's all.
Yeah, that's
I know.
what So I made a video earlier today actually talking about her because, and somebody actually brought it to my attention. I forgot this game is all about sound. right?
Yes, and you see
So-
like the details around it. Yeah.
Yeah, so her marking, her tacit marking is on her throat.
Oh,
And
what?
so when you kind of think about the context of that, when you even think about influence is usually, most people, their ability to be able to speak over masses, or, they have powerful words. And like, I was kind of even looking at that concept, like everybody's tacit marks are in different places. You have like Kakarot's on the top of his head. Bajir's is on her leg. You
Yeah.
have the Rover on the hand. And so kind of trying to find
Tanha
this.
is in the eye.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
and
So
Young
that's
has it on her
significance.
forehead like that girl in that picture.
Exactly.
Yeah, that
So
was crazy. Like when I saw that, I was like,
where are we going? Like, it's a lot of possibilities, man. Like, it really is. It absolutely is.
Yeah, I didn't know this was gonna become like a lore.
Listen,
pseudo-lore
I
thing.
got a new
I'm
title.
down.
Rover Cast Lore Busters.
Gosh, if we just have like a segment. We
Who
just
you
have
gonna
a
call?
segment.
oh man.
Lore Busters.
No, but that I've been thinking about for a while. Like the white, like Utah is just why is it pure white?
You
Why?
cooked with that, bro.
Yeah,
Yeah,
It's
I'm not gonna
healing.
lie.
And it
I
heals
need to
too,
see.
so
I
it's
need
good.
to see a video. I need to see a video, man. I need to see a video.
100%. I think that's a thing though, like because they've already identified like tacit discords like are like their enemies, right? Like,
Yeah,
they're evil,
exactly.
they're forces of chaos that exist within the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so the implication 100% is that if there are these like forces of chaos, there's
It's
got to
be good.
The opposite.
There's
right?
got to be the
Yeah,
good.
When
and
everything's
even
in harmony instead of discord.
Ooh.
That's what I was about to say,
Echoes,
actually.
Let's go.
Because the concept of the term discord alone, like, it's almost like if there isn't an opposite, it's like, what's the word? Not so much a double negative, but it's just like unnecessary to attach the term discord if there's
It's
not an
duality.
opposite to it.
Yeah.
Like otherwise you just call it a tacit and it would just be understood that the tacit is a bad thing. But you're saying tacit discord.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they're called.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
enemies
the
are called tacit discords. So
No,
they're-
yeah, I know.
there's-
Yeah, I wasn't saying you're saying it like that, but I'm just saying when I say you, I'm talking about them, the Koro, who's calling it a discord. So yeah, like by that virtue, there should be a theoretical tacit harmony. Yeah, man, that was such a good point you brought up a little bit with Utah.
I've been thinking about it all day since I first saw that picture.
An echo. You know, like that heartless Novite.
Yeah.
You cooked. Like you got it, bro. I love that.
I didn't know where that was going at first, but when we honestly where we landed,
You steered the plane smooth in.
We landed.
Thank you, Chef Loba. We appreciate the cooking lesson. Take notes.
Putting Gordon Ramsay to shame.
Yeah.
Quaking, bro, being mad quiet after you drop that take, bro. So the next thing that I want to do, everybody, is I want to kind of shift the conversation a little bit. I want to say thank you, counsel, for your gifted takes. I think the prosecutor is sweating right now. The prosecutors who have been coming against Wuthering Waves. I think you guys have made an amazing case for Wuthering Waves, why it's going to stand out, why it's not just hype. And, hopefully people can come out of that cave and see the light like some of us have. It's okay. You're an honorary out of the cave dweller, Connor. We got you. It's okay, man. It's okay. You're going to get into CBT too. All right? Okay. Well, all right, guys. Apparently, we're just going to have to rock it with 3,
Oh,
no,
he came back. There we go.
Okay, he came back with a fist. I don't know how to feel about that. I need an
I was
adult.
pushing the button. It was an elevator.
Yeah. So like I said, I want to shift the conversation, everybody. The next part of this conversation is very important. I want to kind of discuss something that I think is going to be a very helpful and fruitful conversation for us all. Kind of just going forward. Setting the best expectations for ourselves and how we want to operate within the Wuthering Waves community. Just to kind of, be the change that we want to see. You know, when we get into Wuthering Waves community, rather not the community, but once we get into like the launch of the game, the thing is, it's similar to this kind of echo conversation, right? There exists light and darkness, right? If there's light, then there's going to be darkness. Like it's just that's how life works, right? And so, what I want to kind of address is this idea of us as content creators, as the Rover Cast, the place that we want to position ourselves within the community to be a bit of a group that aligns ourselves with that light aspect of the community. We want to be the type of people to where it's like we can come together, we can have meaningful conversations, we can discuss things, but with the end goal in mind of improvement, growth, reconciliation, right? Like I said, we just want to be a part of that light. You know, we know it exists, we know it's out there, and we just want to be a part of that. So that way, when the negative things do eventually come, because they will come, right? That there is someone who is kind of, you know, holding up the guard, right? To say like we're gonna be that a part of that voice, because we know we won't be the only ones, but we want to be a part of that voice for positivity, for just effective, you know, communication and growth. With that being said, one of the things that I was extremely encouraged by was when I kind of looked online, right? I saw so many people just having such amazing and mature takes regarding the direction that they wanted to go with the Wuthering Waves community. I was just like so inspired. Like it really seems like we have a very mature community on our hands, to where it's like if something did pop off, for example, we can say, hey, look, that's not cool. We can talk, we can address it, but it's not so much coming from a position of hate or just to kind of one up the other person. But like I said, with that end goal of desiring change, like positive change for that person, and let that be the thing that inspires us. What are going to be the things that you do with your channel and your influence to help bolster, like I said, that mature and positive, but not just positive just for the sake of being positive, but also mature perspective for the community?
So I would say essentially like my real goal, I really want to try to, I'm not going to convince the whole community to do this, but you know, at least some portion. I'm really, really hyped about this game. Genuinely, I'm excited to see the experience people are going to have when they first try it. And then when they like feel like, man, I have not had this feeling in a long time. Well, I have, me personally, I'm speaking for myself. I have not had this feeling in a long time in the game where I feel like I could actually really enjoy this game and not be bored. I could have fun, you know, like and then I'm like, wow, like I could make a community here. You know what I'm saying? Like I want to provide the utmost, most positive space for people that have that same shared feeling that I got when I first started playing this game. That's like my true end goal. And I hope that I think honestly, the way it's already shaping up, just like beta community, it's shaping up pretty well. Sometimes the community could be a little rough here and there because they get like triggered when they see something they don't like. But for the most part, I've seen a lot of positive people, you know, and trying to like really like educate and in a non-toxic way, you know. And that to me gives me a lot of hope when I see stuff like that, you know, like very mature. It's a pretty mature audience from what I've been seeing. And I'm actually really happy about that because that's the type of community we should be trying to build already, you know, and, you know, also inviting with people from other communities that are not in Wuthering Waves, you know, so they could try to get an easy start, you know, or try to get educated on how to like maybe use a specific character or whatnot. But I think being welcoming, positive about the way you talk about the game and, you know, just try to keep the toxicity out of it. I think that's a good goal to have for everybody.
to the best of your ability.
Yes, yeah. Because I do sometimes get a little. I can get triggered sometimes, but it's just like I'm trying to get my point across, and just some people just don't understand, and that could be frustrating, you know. So sometimes I get a little unhinged, but I've been controlling myself a lot better and trying to be more mature about it. Sometimes I ignore it because I'm like, I'm never gonna get through these people. So sometimes I just give up a little bit and just move on with my day. But honestly, like it's just been positive so far. So it's been great. Yeah.
Look, I'm gonna be serious for a minute here. You know, we've been having some goofs and some gaffs, a lot of fun, a lot of laughs. But it's time to zero in here.
Bars.
Just to contextualize this, not to get into specifics, at the time of this like podcast, like there are a couple gaming communities that are on fire right now, and that's for a couple different reasons that we don't need to get into right now. But it's like pretty horror, like it's fun in a sick way to watch, but it's like kind of sad in a lot of other ways too. And there's a lot of reasons why it is happening that it would be too long to talk about right now. So the thing that is important to me in all of this is really setting expectations, I think, for my own conduct and what I think other people probably should do and understand about things. This is my call to content creators in general. If you happen to be a content creator watching this, I've made a video about this, talking about this. Be honest with your community and about your experience with the game. Talk about the things that you have issue with and talk about the things that you love, and make sure that that's clear to your community when you're doing so. Giving feedback and providing reasons why you don't like something and how it can be fixed is not toxic. Feedback is not toxic. It can be so constructive and helpful and is legitimately essential for creating a product that everybody wants to experience and enjoy. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to be super negative, or I don't like to use this word generally speaking, like toxic about it. Like, look, I'm gonna break a rule here. I'm sorry. You don't have to be an asshole about your feedback. I'm gonna use this. I'm gonna use this selectively in my words here. You can be passionate. You can be frustrated, but that's not ever a real reason to just like attack somebody else or attack somebody else's conduct like in an unwarranted way. And so I just want to encourage other people to do that. So one, don't go out of your way to be negative, but two, be honest with your feedback. And three, have grace for people. Have grace for people who maybe don't make a right call, or maybe they say something out of pocket. Like, you know, Loba mentioned, like sometimes he gets a little passionate. Sometimes I get a little bit passionate, and you know, maybe I'm going to say something that's a little bit off base, and somebody might look at that and be like, wow, Connor's a huge jerk. Probably. I'm human. We all are. And so have a little grace for each other.
A huge human jerk.
I'm the biggest human jerk you've ever met. The only bigger jerk is the jerk chicken I had last week. Okay.
Oh man, that sounds good.
But that's all, those three things. And I'm going to continue to do that. Like, and that's my goal on my channel is I want to be honest about those things. And I also want other people to be honest and to have grace and patience for each other within that. Because I really do think this game and this community has a lot of potential for success. Nothing's guaranteed, but there's a lot of potential there. And so I want to do my part in trying to move that forward.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I could second like you, Connor, you, Loba. Like, there's a lot of like big takeaways that I 100% agree with. I feel like for me personally, I think it's about mirroring what we're seeing, right? So we are kind of seeing Kuro already have this narrative where they're kind of like, okay, we're going to be this transparent with you guys. We want you guys to let us know, like they're inviting that, right? So I feel like it's only fair to continue that. Like we want to make sure we're continuing giving back feedback and constructive criticism. You know, not just saying like, hey, that's bad, and then you just kind of go about your day, but like, why is that bad? Like, why don't you like that? Like, what makes it not enjoyable? because then that gives them the opportunity to be able to change it, right? And so I feel like that kind of coincides to how we operate as a community. We have to give each other opportunities to make adjustments, right? And I feel like the biggest thing, like, and I've been making a crap ton of videos just kind of talking about that, like, as a community, it's okay to hold each other accountable, responsible for our actions or wherever it may be. But we shouldn't try to crucify each other either. So it shouldn't be this, oh, you're this terrible person now, no one talked to that guy. It should be about, hey, you made a mistake, but still come hang out with the bros, right? Because I think that that's the big takeaway is like, you know, I feel like it hits different when someone is able to say to you, "Hey, man, hey, you've been acting crazy for the last 6 months, but we still appreciate you. You're still a part of this community. We're not going to exile you." I feel like that leads to greater changes within a space versus, there's two divided sides and you have cliques forming around that, and then now it's becoming this tug of war of people, and it's no longer about the community anymore. And so that for me has been like one of my big goals with my channel is it to not be about myself or even just necessarily my growth, but how can I serve this community with the content that I'm putting out, the relationships that I'm building with like you guys, for example, or even others that come, either now or in the future. And really the big takeaway is not about being right? Like my goal isn't to be the right guy. My goal is to be the guy that is fair, is willing to listen to everyone and just being understanding. Everybody's takes, everybody's input is valuable. And I think that, once we kind of assist with giving that and really pushing that narrative more, where it's like, okay, hey, don't feel like what you're asking is dumb. Like, like when people come into a community and they ask like, hey, like, I'm new. Do you think this character makes sense to invest in? And then you have those like dudes that come in the community like, no, man, you're dumb. Like that guy's trash. Like, why would you ever use him? And then the person leaves and they're like, wow, that really sucked. And granted, it's like you can't stop all situations, but I think that when you start kind of looking up at the creators, which we all are, we're all influences. When you start looking at that and the responsibility that we have, a lot of things trickle down. So when you typically see those creators that are a lot more level-headed and they typically are, true to that and they emphasize that and they set communities where it's like, hey man, make sure you're respecting others, yourself. And when you go into other people's communities, respect them and their rules. You kind of see how people will kind of adjust to that, right? And I feel like one of the things I'm hoping to see is more collaborative efforts. So I would love to see creators really, honestly, truly coming together any chance they get. I think that people have been divided for too long in these spaces, and especially in the gotcha gaming community. And I feel like, again, not to talk too much about the actual things that are happening, but that to me is one of the big things that I've taken away is that you're seeing what's unfolding because people are so disconnected. It's more than enough room for everybody, but there's still this division, right? And so it's like, why can't we reach back to the smaller creators that have, 100 subscribers or, even reaching upward to try to interact with the creators that have, 100,000 subscribers. And so it's like finding that balance between that. For me, I really just would say that I think it's going to be really important for us all to collectively just to make better decisions. So as creators, setting a better tone for our communities and for our communities to be more aware of the individuals that they're giving their time and attention to and who they allow to influence them, because that's what you usually the saying goes, you are the company that you keep, right? So that to me is just like a really really important thing. And so even with that mentality, not pushing people out or away, but like really trying to find a way to work through those problems and doing more things behind closed doors for Pete's sake. Like, can we please, like, and I said this in a video, hey, if you don't like me, man, please just let me know on like Twitter DM, Discord. Hey, Facebook, if you can find me, like anything.
No, should I take that tweet down? Should I just take that tweet down that I just put up about you?
Yeah,
Was that a bad idea?
absolutely, absolutely, man. Just
Oh.
shoot me the tweet. Actually, leave it in the saved drafts, and just send it to me, like screenshot it and let's talk about it. You know, like that for me, I feel like, you know, everything doesn't have to be public, right? And I think that that's the important thing. It's like, again, it goes into that idea of like, we don't have to be, you know, it's not about who's right and who's wrong, but it's about acknowledging how we might feel about something and, you know, like I said, hashing it out and then we move forward. Everything doesn't have to be these bigger situations, right? And I get it, like that's not going to 100% be the case because there's going to be so many different personalities, so many different types of people coming into the community. But I will say, if more people share like-mindedness in that aspect, you're going to have a much easier time dealing with conflict because at that point it's going to be like, you know, it's going to maybe make people take a step back and be like, oh man, you know what, like there's actually a lot of eyes looking like, hey man, we're not like hating on you, but we are holding you accountable and you should do better. I think telling someone they should do better, there's nothing wrong with that. Like I would want someone to call me out and be like, hey Zox, you know better, bro, like you should do better, you know. And I think that that is something that you know, I'm just really hoping to see. I really really am. And more than anything, just having fun with the game. Let's just game, let's have fun. You know, it doesn't even have to really be that deep, but yeah, it is just that simple for me, really.
I got two little caveats I got to add on mine real quick, just to make sure it's like abundantly clear. One, disagreeing with somebody is not toxic.
100%.
Like, people can hold conflicting views. Like if Zox makes a claim about a character, or in like the last episode, you know, Life's a huge fan of Encore. If somebody else walks in here and goes, hey man, I really don't like Encore, that's a preference.
Then they're
You can
getting kicked
disagree.
out.
we can all be friends, guys. We can still be friends, you
I
know.
mean, yeah, we
like
can, unless you talk bad about Encore, of course. That's my limit. Like, you know, say whatever you want about me, but if you speak bad about Encore, we're gonna have problems, okay? Like, she didn't do nothing to nobody. All right.
whether it be characters, gameplay mechanics, or whatever it may be, if people disagree and they don't like the same thing, or they just don't see eye to eye on something, that's not toxic. So I just want people to remember that. And the second thing is, just because somebody may not like something in the game and they've got feedback for that piece of the game, doesn't mean they hate the game, and you don't need to crucify them for that. Like, it's just, I just can't emphasize enough that idea that not liking the same things or disagreeing on things or having feedback for the game, even if somebody gets passionate about it, isn't a problem. And that's okay. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. I'm very passionate
Agree.
about that.
Yeah, I feel like it goes into the concept that like to have the expectation that everybody should express the same is implying that everybody is the same. And it's like, you know, the way that Life is going to say something, or the way Loba is going to say something, the way Connor might express something, everybody's going to express it differently. So I 100% agree with that, because like, again, like some people might be more laid back and that might be more, you know, received by a certain aspect of the audience, where there's somebody that's a little bit more hyperactive and they're like, hey man, I really don't like this. And, you know, they're really just, you know, they love the game, still share the same passions as someone else. They're just not as necessarily as monotone or as, you know, calm about it. But it doesn't mean that they're being malicious. I think it's that, right? It's like, what is the actual intent? And it's like being able to voice what you feel doesn't necessarily, especially when it's more, what is the word? It's just I guess being more bolsterous, I guess, like it's just more loud. It doesn't mean that you're being malicious. Is kind of like that, right? So yeah, I definitely agree with that 100%.
Also, somebody chooses to be free to play or whale, doesn't matter. Mind your business. It's not your business.
Yeah, in my pockets, man. Yeah, in my pockets.
Agreed. There's two things. The first thing is this idea of there existed, what have you, a long time ago, approximately 2,000 years to be specific. There was a carpenter, and this carpenter had a speech. This carpenter made a speech on a mountain, and this speech that this carpenter had on a mountain, there's this particular thing that he said, and it reverberated to the point where even 2,000 years later, people still speak it, even if they don't know where it came from. And the statement that was made was, Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I think that is to kind of just like put this whole thing to perspective. I really think that's kind of what we're just saying at this point. It's just like treat other people the way that you want to be treated, right? Treat them like they are someone worth protecting because you know you would do the same for yourself. So, and if we do that, it invokes this great and awesome thing that is called reciprocity. This idea that, if I give of myself and the other person gives of themselves, we will both be mutually benefited by it. And if you multiply this concept across content creators, across community members, so forth and so on, as Connor was saying, just like giving grace to people, right? Like you do that, we have no choice but to thrive. So I would highly encourage everybody to just consider that. Like consider what value is there in, in ostracizing this person. And I'm gonna be honest, sometimes it's like a thing that requires some self-reflection. Maybe you didn't have a great day, right? Maybe you didn't have a great week. And now you're just like looking to like unleash, on somebody, what have you, because they don't agree with, your particular take of like, I think this person is trash, or I think this character is trash. And I need to make sure that the people who don't understand that because for some reason, this particular opinion is so necessary that I'm willing to like make some like ruin somebody's day over it, right? It's like
Sorry, I had to. It was too easy. It was
be the
too
change
easy.
that you want to see, I respect your wrong opinion.
We could just agree to disagree.
I agree to disagree that you thought of that through all the way. No, but yeah, so honestly, like, yeah, just like laugh it off, joke it off, please. Like, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Like, I guarantee you, like, without a shadow of a doubt, I have no singular doubt in my mind that if you employ that strategy in your real life, because let's be honest, we talk about the game, right? We talk about the game, but the game is a part of real life. Like, you are a human being existing in real life, engaging in a game that exists in real life. And so it's not just a game in essence, right? Like, it's a game, but it's also, if you at any point in your life decide to engage with the community of said game, you have now entered real life. And so as a result, we need to treat real life like real life, not just like, oh, there's another person on the side of that screen. You yourself are a person on the other side of a screen. And so just, I guarantee you, if you were to employ this method of doing unto others as you would have them do unto you, right? There's times where you mess up and you need somebody to just be like, you know what? I'm not going to strike you down. It's like you mess up and you're just waiting for that person to like hit you because you know that if somebody else did it, you probably would have did the same thing. If you take that out of context and say, this time, I'm not going to do that. And I want to pay this forward because I know somebody else in the past didn't strike me when I was wrong. And so I won't strike that person. Like I said, you multiply that over time, dividends, right? So I would strongly encourage everybody, as we're going forward with this community, employ this concept and just watch the law of reciprocity just do its job. And things are, like I said, I'm telling you, it's gonna be amazing. You're gonna be able to think about this community, and you're just gonna be like, man, awesome community. I came for the game, and I stayed for the community. Because I'll tell you myself, I've had times where like I was like, yo, this game is so sick, and then I learned about the community, and I was just turned off. Like it almost made me not even want to play the game as much, which was crazy. And so, like, communities can kind of really make or break games sometimes. So what we want to do, as for us in our podcast, what we would like to do is be a part of that space where we can, like I said, have these mature conversations, show each other grace, and we want to be that example. We want to be the change that we want to see, essentially. So I'm gonna end it there. Like I said, we had a great conversation today. We got to talk about, we got to defend Wuthering Waves against the false allegations, the many false allegations that have been put up against it. We had like a nice little conversation about some of the lore. And then I guess you could say we kind of just like established the expectation of what we plan to do as a podcast and what we hope for in the community going forward. So, as always, thank you all for coming through. Thank you, Zox, for coming through as well. We hope to see you again very soon. And I'll let everybody kind of do their thing. Shout out your channels to anybody who's new, who might be, kind of tuning in for the first time.
Hold on, let me look at the camera. All right, guys. So,
oh shoot, light skin stare.
Don't put me on the spot like that. Guys, listen, man. One channel, Zaxxas Wua, or is it Wua, right? Right? Is that Wua, right? Zaxxas Wua. That is the channel, guys. My Twitter page, Zaxxas. Yes, it is PG. You can definitely follow me on there. You don't have to worry about anything scary. It is a safe place. It has been mainly Wuthering Waves content and more Wuthering Waves content. So definitely make sure you guys definitely check me out on there too. Again, appreciate you guys for the opportunity and just letting me be a part of the amazing thing that you guys are doing for the community, man.
Absolutely. Happy to have you.
Yeah, I can jump in next. Again, thanks for coming on, Zox. It's been great.
Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, Connor's Thoughts. I just rock the one channel too on YouTube at Connor's Thoughts. Same on Twitch. You can follow me there. We're doing some more streams. We did one last week. It was a great time. So feel free to come check it out. Join the community there. Yeah. Also Connor's Thoughts on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, pretty much all the platforms at Connor's Thoughts. There might be an underscore at the end on some of them, but I tried to make it as easy as possible. And I'm on most of them, so come check it out.
Yeah, guys, Lobo Pixel, truly honored to be a part of the Rover Cast once again. Really awesome episode, really good thoughts. Connor's thoughts and Zox's and everybody, yeah. But we had, I always have such a fun time doing these, man. Like, because we're all passionate about the same thing. And just really hyped and excited and anticipation, So yeah, if you guys want to check me out, I do live stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/LoboPixel. I'm going through the drama stuff, it's entertaining. I'm not a part of it. I just want to see what's going on. It's just fun, it's just like watching your favorite reality TV show or something. That's what it feels like. Nothing crazy there. But, we have fun in there sometimes. And then, I'm posting on the YouTubes, on Lower Pixel Gaming, so I'm posting a lot of Wuthering Waves content strictly. I'm trying to focus on that more because I'm very passionate about the game in general. And on Twitter, Lower Pixel as well. And I follow the rest of the guys on Twitter because we're all hyped about Wuthering Waves. We're all posting. We're all retweeting Wuthering Waves content as well. So I just wanted to shout that out as well for everybody. If you're on Twitter, definitely, go in there, give us some likes, some retweets, some comments, it will help a lot.
Awesome. And as always, life here, Life Lessons 2 on YouTube. Very soon, hopefully you'll understand what the 2 means. I stream on Twitch, Life Lessons NCNL. That's Life Lessons NCNL. And I plan to be streaming pretty frequently very soon. Part of that goal, probably be streaming this week kind of coming up. When this podcast comes out, I will probably have already streamed. So yeah, RPG games like Legend of Zelda is something I'm planning to do probably up until the CBT2 comes out. The first one, never played it, so that's a fun time. Breath of the Wild specifically. And yeah, Twitter, all the things. So feel free to come through. One thing I will say is I've been putting like snippets of the podcast on the channel as well. So, if you know somebody who might be interested in kind of hearing some of the things that we're talking about, but might not have the time commitment or just not fully sure how far deeply they want to dive in, share one of the podcast clips that I have on the channel with them. So like that's gonna be a big thing, just sharing that stuff. So we thank you all so much as always. You know, like, comment, subscribe to everybody here, and you know, hit the comments. You guys' comments have been so enjoyable to read and respond to. So keep that up. And yeah, so without further ado, peace. Hey, you. Do the thing.